seems to have drawn the attention of the Harpers, and anything that concerns the Harpers is certain to be trouble.
So especially in the beginning, it was kind of like I was putting on a show without realizing it. From time to time, I'd be playing Neverwinter, and I'd realize that I wasn't alone anymore. My wife and daughter would be creeping in on the sides, watching for my reaction when this next thing happened. They knew I loved undead, but they also knew a few of my favorite things were going to be making unexpected appearances. When I got to Craftsman's Rest, it happened frequently. And then I got to the clock tower. Hey everybody, I'm Cal, and now that you're here, let's talk about Neverwinter.
Have I told you I'm a genius?
Not undead, and definitely not one of my favorite tropes in D&D. Shadowbell is a delight. I can't go on without singing his praises. Second only to every version of Kavados in the game, including Grezalax, Zarafrax, Galwangrist, and others. Shadowbell is a guy who should be completely unlikable, and yet I love him for it. When he came back in not just one future mod, but two, I was elated, and I want to see him again. The thing about Shadowbell is that he's telling the truth. There's no reason to believe he's not a genius, and he's so upfront about everything, from his concerns about Miss Monini because she's his bankroll, to the absolute cold of his future endeavors, to his fear of being eaten in the ones that come after that. He's just a guy with no filter. It shouldn't be endearing, but the writing and the delivery make it so that I keep laughing as he keeps talking. And here in Neverdeath, it's even better, because Wendell's thoughts on Shadowbell just make it better still. And the fact that Shadowbell is apparently oblivious to her thoughts is, well, it's perfect Shadowbell. But enough about that. There's a haunted graveyard to explore. The Craftsman's Rest version of Neverdeath is also heavily reliant on instances, which, like I said in my last video, is something that I really enjoy. I love going PvE, I love the exploration, I love the opportunity to follow a story and characters and just see what's coming next. And while I loved Pauper's Field and the Doomguide quests, because of all of the traditional elements and the added layer of the Red Wizards of THEY, there's something about the Harper quests that are over here in Craftsman's Rest that just take everything to the next level. I feel like in Craftsman's Rest, there are more visuals, there's more to look at. This is where you really start to see things like this really cool little section of the cemetery with this cluster of graves. The skyline stands out more vividly. There's more haunted towers and things that look creepy that you feel like you're going to get to explore. It takes the Pauper's Rest just landscape of a haunted cemetery and brings it up to the next level. Craftsman's Rest is when you start to see visuals like the wrapped bodies that have been exhumed by the Red Wizards or the Cult of the Dragon. And also things like this spiral staircase. If you've been playing Neverwinter a long time, this spiral staircase isn't all that exciting anymore. But if you've just begun playing, this is kind of a revelation inside of Neverwinter. The way that you go in on a lower level, you can explore a bit, you fight your way through some monsters, you climb this spiral staircase, and when you exit, you're outside on a higher level than you were before, and you're able to continue exploring. And again, I absolutely love these visuals of all these bodies, especially in a Dungeons and Dragons game, which is usually so focused on keeping the content G-rated. This is a little edgier than you usually get from anything with the Dungeons and Dragons brand name on it. And I really appreciate that after years of every haunted cemetery being the victim of grave robbers, someone finally made a game where you actually see the bodies that are being exhumed, being dug up, and being robbed, or being sent off to the Dread Ring in order to become undead. And that is kind of a little subtle thing. It took me a while. I played this game a few different times before it occurred to me that what we're seeing here is red wizards of Thay digging up bodies, and then in the next mod after Sharandar, the Dread Ring, all of these undead are being used and put to work digging up dragon bones and trying to give Valindra her Dracolich. I thought that was a really clever tie-in there. For people who are looking for a video that complains about Neverwinter, I'm just not going to be your guide this time around. There is so much to love still in Neverdeath. The biggest complaint that I have is that when they went through for Jewel of the North and they streamlined everything, there was so much in here. They really cut through to the bone, and they removed a lot of really great content. So while I love what's in Neverdeath now, I love the story that it tells, I love the way it fits into the whole Jewel of the North narrative of Valindra and the Red Wizards of Thay and the Cult of the Dragon, I miss so much of what was taken out of it. Even the bottomless pits and those bridges that we just ran across, there was just so much atmosphere. There were so many little side quests. And while they didn't progress the narrative that Jewel of the North wants to tell, they did so much to establish Neverdeath as this really creepy location, a real haunted graveyard, something that you could really sink your teeth into and enjoy exploring. And that was largely lost. This is a really cool story that propels you through from level 1 to level 20 and sets the stage for the Valindra story arcs and the Cult of the Dragon story arcs that follow. What was lost is Neverdeath itself and the exploration of this really, really cool haunted cemetery and all of the neat stuff that's in it. So maybe I can be that guy if you're looking for some negative, but overall, I love what's here. I just really miss a lot of what was taken out. Speaking of which, this portion of Neverdeath, it feels appropriate that this is a graveyard. This big, desolate, empty square. I think a lot of people are probably glad that things like Carthraxis and Vardalingorix and Merothrax are all gone from the game because it was a grind. But on a personal level, this was kind of the heart of Neverwinter for my family. In the beginning, my wife started playing first, my daughter followed, and they were playing through the Tyranny of Dragons plotline, which used to involve coming here multiple times and fighting Carthraxis, the green dragon. And then you would go off and you would fight the black dragon Vardalingorix over in Ebon Downs, and then you would go and you would fight Merothrax at Icespire Peak, and you'd fight Villathrax over in the Whispering Caverns, and it was kind of a daily cycle that you'd get into. But for the kids, it was super exciting to watch us fight dragons. And there was also a timing element of you weren't sure if Carthraxis was up yet. And so when you'd get there, somebody would shout, "Carthraxis is here!" And everybody would come running through the house to watch the fight with Carthraxis, or Vardalingorix, or Merothrax, or Villathrax. It might sound silly to say, but our family really bonded over killing these dragons on an almost daily basis. Now, take into account this was COVID, lockdown. There was a little bit more time. It was something that we could do at the time. We probably wouldn't have had that option these days. But it was really neat, and it felt almost personal when those things were just removed because we needed to streamline the story, especially considering that the reason for the removal of this content was that not enough people were going to these instances. I don't understand to this day how completely removing these dragons fixed the problem of not enough people going to these instances. If you take content out of Ebon Downs and Neverdeath and Icespire Peak and Whispering Caverns, how does that fix the problem of not enough people going to those locations? That it still boggles my mind that that was the rationale that was given for removing this content from the game. Would I miss it if I didn't know it was there? No. And I'd probably think it was pretty cool that there was a dragon skeleton in the corner of the cemetery. It would make it feel very atmospheric and moody. But I'd also wonder why there isn't a single encounter set around that dragon skeleton, which now feels just kind of tacked on to the rest of the graveyard. So kudos for honoring the fact that there used to be an awesome encounter there, but I really wish they would have done something with it when they put that in there. And no, the temporary 4-week battle pass, Echoes of Prophecy, that actually dealt with those dragons and their spirits, that was a temporary thing. Most people playing the game probably either don't remember it or don't realize it ever existed. Those skeletons are just laying there with one piece of lore. There's nothing tying them to what came before. The thing that still baffles me, like I said before, why would you get rid of exploration in Dungeons and Dragons? And why would you get rid of dragons from Dungeons and Dragons? I just don't get that choice. But anyway, this is a happy video. I said I love Neverdeath, and I meant it. What's here is still so awesome. This is our first taste of Evernight, the Shadowfell reflection of Neverdeath. You get to go in here. First time you really get to fight the Shade Archai. You really get to explore and find out what's going on here. It's tied into the whole storyline. And it comes back so many times. The Shade Archai come back in Volahk. Evernight comes back in the Cloaked Ascendancy. It comes back very briefly at the beginning of Valindra. It's this really cool element of Neverwinter, the flip side of it. That's just such a cool place to go and explore. Really cool visuals, really neat flavor to it. It's a lot of fun. And it all leads up to the clock tower, which might still be, to this day, my favorite set piece in this entire game. With the glass floors that you can look down through and see the cogs moving, the many different levers that you need to pull to engage the different systems within the clock tower, all the different cool creatures that are inside of it. The clock tower is just a masterpiece of this sort of dungeon design that Neverwinter uses. It's a lot of fun to go through and explore, and it's also the first opportunity that you have to encounter certain creatures that are in the game that come as a surprise. This was the first gelatinous cube in Neverwinter that we experienced, that my family experienced. If there's a monster cooler than a gelatinous cube, I haven't encountered it yet. There's just something about, well, there's just always room for Jello, right? And I will never forget the experience of walking down that hallway and just becoming aware that everyone in the house had come out. Everyone in the house was watching and wondering, what the hell is going to be in this hallway? And then the next thing I know, the gelatinous cube appears. And it was just this really cool moment. It was so much fun to find this iconic Dungeons and Dragons monster and get to fight it in Neverwinter. It was really cool to see something like that realized on the screen. This riddle was also a really big deal for my daughter. She was able to figure this out on her own at a pretty young age. She was really proud of that. And I remember also this was another moment where everyone just kind of leaned in and waited to see what was going to happen when I got to this part of the dungeon too. As far as riddles go, obviously Neverwinter isn't going to be pushing the envelope and making it super difficult. But this one actually did require a moment of thought. You actually had to consider what they were asking to determine the solution. For a game that's designed on all roads lead forward, they can't really put a riddle in that you can't solve. But it would be neat if at some point they had a riddle where you had to gather information ahead of time and use that information to solve the riddle later. But that just seems one step beyond where Neverwinter wants to take its story or its level of complexity. But still, maybe a future mod, it would be kind of cool to see something like that. I didn't show it in this video, but there's another first in here where you encounter your first mimic, which was also super exciting to find. Between the gelatinous cube and the mimic, the clock tower was loaded with firsts for Neverwinter. At least it was when my family played through Neverwinter for the first time. We had gone through the Sleeping Dragon Bridge, we had gone through Black Lake, we had gone through the Merchant District. We'd gotten to our 20s back in the day. That the levels used to go to 80, and it felt like we had kind of seen what Neverwinter had to offer. And to have these new types of creatures pop up was a lot of fun. Then we get here, Valindra shows up, makes a little cameo, leaves you to fight the dragon. Oh wait, not the dragon, the giant spider. I remember that feeling of, oh my god, it's Valindra and the dragon, and she's leaving. That means she's going to leave oh wait, she didn't leave the dragon, she took the dragon. I'm fighting a giant spider. It kind of came out of left field, but at the same time, very appropriate for the Haunted Cemetery, very appropriate for the Haunted Clock Tower. And then you leave, and you have finished all of Neverdeath. You get to do your parade through the night statues, head back to Chettlerbell and Wendell, and then head back to Nox. And that is the end of your expedition into Neverdeath Graveyard. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen here today. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. Let us know that you want some more. Leave a comment in the comment section. This has been a lot of fun. Look forward to seeing you next time when we talk about Neverwinter.